Stephen Colbert stepped onto the stage with his usual gait, light, sure, built for applause. The monologue landed. The crowd was primed, and when he finally said her name, the studio leaned forward. My guest tonight is Jennifer Lawrence, Oscar winner, activist, and someone whose honesty makes press tours feel like therapy sessions you didn't schedule. Laughter. Warm. Expectant. The camera cut wide. Jennifer walked out. Hair pulled back. Minimal makeup. Black suit. No jewelry. No wave to the audience. Just a quick nod. She sat down, crossed one leg over the other, and smiled at Stephen. But it wasn't the smile of a celebrity working the couch. It was the smile of someone already holding something heavy. Stephen began easily. Jennifer, it's always great having you here. You have a way of making Hollywood sound a little less polished. Jennifer gave a quick laugh, but it didn't carry. Yeah, well, polish is expensive. Truth's cheaper. Stephen grinned. And Messier. Usually. The audience laughed. But Jennifer didn't keep the beat. She sat still, eyes locked, posture upright. Stephen noticed. He pivoted. You're here promoting a new film, but I want to ask. You've said recently that fame doesn't feel safe anymore. What does that mean? Jennifer exhaled once through her nose. It means I used to think I was selling stories. Now I think people want pieces. Stephen raised an eyebrow. Pieces? She nodded. Of you. Of your mind. Of your mistakes. Whatever feels clickable. The crowd didn't laugh. They didn't shift. They listened. Stephen asked, so do you regret staying in the spotlight? Jennifer looked at him. I regret thinking I could stay in it and still see clearly. There it was. The first beat that didn't land like a line. Stephen sat back. You know, I've had a lot of actors sit here and say they're tired. But you're not saying that. Jennifer replied. No, I'm not tired. I'm filtered. And the filter isn't mine. The audience didn't quite know what to do. Someone clapped once. No one joined. Stephen tried to lighten. So this is a fun press tour. Jennifer didn't smile. It's not a tour. It's a gauntlet. Stephen cleared his throat. His hand moved toward the next card. But Jennifer kept speaking. You asked me what it means to not feel safe. It means walking into rooms like this and wondering if I'm here for truth or content. Stephen said, you think we're here to make content out of you? Jennifer looked at him, steady. I think everyone is. That's the economy now, right? The audience didn't make a sound. Not because they were shocked. Because they were implicated. Stephen looked at his card. Put it down. What do you wish people understood about what this actually feels like? Jennifer took her time. Then said, it feels like being dissected while smiling. It feels like being called brave for bleeding neatly. Stephen nodded once. There was no pivot. No joke. No safety line. And when they went to commercial, the music played. But no one clapped. Not because they weren't told to. Because they weren't sure if they should. The show came back from commercial with the usual music. The camera panned to Stephen Colbert, who smiled. Not because the moment called for it, but because the format did. He looked into the lens, then at Jennifer. We're back with Jennifer Lawrence, who's clearly here to make things easy for me. A few laughs. Jennifer tilted her head slightly. I never promised easy. Just honest. Stephen chuckled. Okay, let's lighten it up. The film. You're phenomenal in it. And also, very funny. In that unhinged, why is she laughing kind of way. Jennifer nodded. That's how most people describe me off camera, too. The crowd laughed. But she didn't. Stephen pushed. Was it nice to do something a little less serious? Jennifer answered. Serious isn't in the script. It's in the skin you bring to it. Stephen blinked. You want to unpack that? She shrugged. I'm just saying, comedy only works if it's carrying something heavier under it. Otherwise, it's just noise. The room quieted again. Stephen glanced toward the control room. No cue. Just the kind of stillness that meant the rhythm was slipping. He tried to recover. You've talked about how certain roles were healing for you. Was this one of those? Jennifer looked at him. Healing only happens in private. This was something else. What was it? Proof I could show up without pretending I wasn't broken. The laughter had stopped. The applause wasn't coming. Jennifer leaned in. You keep looking for the light part of this. But I'm not here to be palatable. I've done that already. Stephen said. So what are you here to be? She answered. Unguarded. That landed in a way nothing else had. The silence behind it wasn't awkward. It was earned, and it left Stephen with a choice. Change the tone, or stay with her. He set the next card aside. Okay, no character, no clip, no plug. Let's just talk. What do people misunderstand about someone like you? Jennifer didn't pause. That the camera makes you visible. It doesn't. It just makes your image louder than your voice. Stephen sat back, not in defense, in respect. Jennifer went on. People think we want attention. We don't. We want recognition. There's a difference. And what's the difference? Attention makes you a moment. Recognition lets you be a person. The studio was still. Even the lights seemed to soften. Stephen asked, gently, "Do you feel like a person in rooms like this?" Jennifer smiled. Not for effect. Just because the question reached something. Only when someone stops asking me to perform being real and just lets me be. Stephen nodded. No punchline. No recovery. Just a host sitting across from someone who had refused to become material. The segment ended without outro music. Not because the band missed the cue. Because the booth told them to hold. No one said why. They just let the moment breathe. And then they went to break. They came back from commercial quietly. The band played. But softer. The audience clapped. But shorter. Stephen Colbert smiled into the camera. But not quite all the way. He looked at Jennifer and said, "We're back." Still joined by Jennifer Lawrence, who is not here to promote a film as much as she is to remind us we are, in fact, alive. The audience chuckled. Jennifer tilted her head slightly. That's generous. Most people would just say, "I'm ruining the vibe." Stephen held his smile, but it didn't stick. It's a different kind of vibe. Slower. Heavier. Important. Jennifer looked at him carefully. That's the thing about weight. People say they want honesty, but they only carry it if it folds small. Stephen nodded. And you're not folding. Not tonight. The audience stayed still. Stephen turned, slightly, toward the card in his hand, then let it drop back to the desk. So tell me something that didn't make the press junket. Jennifer exhaled. You know what nobody asks me? What it costs to show up and not lie. Stephen leaned in. What does it cost? Everything you brought with you that made you easy to interview. That hit. Not like a moment. Like a truth. One that doesn't rise. It just sinks in. Stephen glanced toward the audience. They were quiet, yes, but not tense. They were present. And Jennifer knew it. She looked out at them, not accusing, just scanning. Then said, "You guys aren't the problem. It's the space. This space. It starts wide, but then it narrows. With every question that wants a version of me instead of me." Stephen sat back. This wasn't defiance. It wasn't rebellion. But it was becoming something else. Something incompatible with the format. Jennifer shifted in her chair, crossed her legs the other way. Not nervous, not defensive, just gathering something inside herself. She looked at Stephen. You've been kind. Really. But I can feel it. The edges. The moment when this becomes packaging again. Stephen blinked. You don't want to finish? She didn't answer right away. Then, I don't want to leave here having given a version I'll have to carry. There was a pause. Then another. Stephen looked toward the stage manager. The signal came. Wrap soon. But he didn't move. He looked back at Jennifer. You can go. You're not required to be here just because this segment isn't over. She smiled. Warm. Real. Thank you. Then she stood. No noise. No gesture. She took off the mic and handed it to a producer with both hands. Then walked off stage. No applause. No music. Just her steps. And the silence she left behind. The music didn't play her out. The camera didn't follow her. Jennifer Lawrence walked off stage and into the wings, unhurried. She didn't turn. She didn't speak. She didn't wave to the crowd. She simply left the moment exactly as it had unfolded. Unwrapped. Unresolved. Untouched. Stephen Colbert sat alone at the desk for a few seconds longer than usual. His fingers tapped once against the mug. Not nervously. Just so the silence wouldn't fall flat against the desk. Then he looked at the audience. Well, that was honest. Laughter. Light. Uneven. He stood. We'll be right back. The next guest came out after the break. A comedian. The audience clapped as expected. The segment was fine. But the rhythm didn't recover. Because even when people laughed, they were remembering the absence. the one that had formed the shape of something you weren't supposed to name. Backstage, Jennifer's car was already waiting. No one tried to stop her. No one asked her to explain. The producer who met her at the hallway exit simply said, "Thank you for trusting the room." Jennifer paused, then said, "The room didn't lie. It just asked me to smile while I bled. That's the part one couldn't carry." And then she left. In the edit bay, no one suggested cutting the moment. No one tried to reshape it. The only question asked was whether to label the clip for online. The editor said, "Just title it her name. Let it speak for itself." And so they did. The clip went live without a caption. No pull quote. No teaser. Just a still frame of Jennifer sitting at the desk. Not mid-sentence. Not smiling. Not posing. Just sitting. People watched. Some watched twice. Many didn't comment at all. A few just wrote. This wasn't a walk-off. This was a decision. She didn't storm out. She left intact. Stephen made no statement. He didn't need to. He didn't try to interpret it the next night on air. But off camera, to a writer after taping, he said quietly, "That wasn't about the show. That was about what the show couldn't hold." And the writer just nodded, because they both knew the difference. The clips circulated, but not the way clips usually did. There were no bold captions, no reaction emojis, no viral quote in the thumbnail. Just a 5-second preview. Jennifer Lawrence sitting upright, expression steady, lips pressed together. Watching, listening, refusing to play. People didn't share it with commentary. They shared it with questions. Did you see this? Was that real? Why did it feel like she didn't leave? The room just stopped holding her. A few wrote essays. Most just watched. Silently. In a college media studies class, a professor played the segment without context. Afterward, he asked, "What did she say that made you listen?" A student replied, "It wasn't what she said. It was what she didn't change, even when the room leaned on her." Another added, "She didn't storm out. She let the table shrink, and then walked away before it broke her." In a production meeting across the country, a young producer pinned a still from the episode to the wall above her desk. Not because it made for good TV, because it reminded her what happens when someone refuses to dissolve into it. Jennifer didn't speak about it again. Not in interviews. Not on social media. When asked during a later press event how she felt about walking off Colbert's show, she said only, "I didn't walk off. I just knew when I was done being shaped." And that was it. Stephen didn't refer to it either. But in a taping weeks later, after another guest offered a tightly polished, overly rehearsed story, he looked at the audience and said, "Sometimes this desk makes people too smooth. Sometimes I miss the ones who come in unfiltered." The crowd laughed, but the sound was thin, because a few of them remembered. The clip remained online. Same length. Same title. No edits. No commentary track. It didn't trend. It hovered, steady, unforced, quietly resurfacing in corners of the internet where people passed it around like a private lesson. One thread simply read, "She didn't storm off. She held the air until it changed. Then she left it behind." Underneath, someone replied, "Not dramatic. Just done." In a small indie theater's green room, an actor replayed the clip before opening night. When someone asked why, she said, "Because I need to remember that I don't have to smile through the part where I disappear." She turned off the screen and stepped on stage whole. In a podcast weeks later, a critic mentioned the moment in passing. She wasn't resisting Stephen. She was resisting the invitation to become another softened version of herself. Her co-host added, "And she didn't make a scene. No, she just left one." Jennifer Lawrence did no follow-up tour. No clarification. When asked months later in a print interview if she regretted how it ended, she said, "I didn't end it. I just didn't keep it going once it stopped being real." The interviewer paused, then asked, "Were you scared?" She smiled. "No, I was tired." Then she moved on. Stephen Colbert never referenced the moment directly, but in a quiet meeting with his writing staff, after a guest dropped a scripted joke instead of a real answer, he said, "We ask for honesty, but only the kind that fits in 30 seconds. No one replied, but someone nodded, because they remembered what it looked like when someone gave them more. And they let it slip away. The set stayed the same. The format resumed. But once, just once, The room had been made to feel something it didn't know how to name. And no one, from the booth to the audience, ever forgot what it sounded like. When a woman sat at the desk, told the truth, and refused to stay until the silence was shaped into something safer.